may have to leave it if Elon Musk takes over. I'm not sure that I want to be involved in his Twitter. There will be a rise in kind of racist and transphobic and indeed anti-feminist on the other side, and all kinds of other nastiness will prevail. And Musk will go, yeah, that's what we call free speech. Free speech is, of course, important, but it's not the end point.
You've got almost 13 million followers on Twitter. What's your relationship been with social media? Because,
up and down.
I mean, Twitter really is a cesspool at the best of times of just negativity and abuse and trolls. So reflecting on the experience you had when you were 37 with that critical feedback, I mean, Twitter is not a great place to be if you want.
No, indeed it isn't.
Empathy.
I mean, it is supportive too. I mean, I've learned how to use it in a way that is not likely ever to upset me anymore. There was a time when I was fully engaged with it, and you call it a cesspool, and I've used similar images in the early days. It was like a lovely swimming hole in a glade in a lovely wood somewhere, where people of goodwill and from around would swim about, and you'd bump into them and go, "Hi, how are you?" And you'd just chat, and then suddenly you'd notice, oh, there's a turd floating on this. What the hell's that doing there? And then suddenly there'd be a bit of broken glass when you put your foot down, or an old rusty pram or something, and you realise that it had become, as you say, a kind of cesspool. And that's a terrible shame. It's immensely useful to have that many followers, because it means I can satisfy a few publicity requirements with one stroke of the pen, as it were, just by tweeting about them. And it will reach a bigger audience than if I spend 4 hours doing a profile with a journalist who always want to get under my skin and ask annoying questions.
Like me.
So it's a lazy, good publicity tool. I'm slightly worried that I don't know, that I may have to leave it if Elon Musk takes over. I'm not sure that I want to be involved in his Twitter. It doesn't sound like a nice, happy place. I'll consider, I might just simply stop using it in any other way except to post things for charities or work that but rather than engaging in people, I'm not sure I want to see some of the tweets that float up from the kind of people that Musk encourages. I mean, I may be wrong. And it's not that I want it to be a left-wing thing, not a right-wing thing. I mean, I'm fully, of course, aware that it should reflect society as much as possible. But do you know what I wanted to do in a sort of way is go on one of those. Doesn't Piers Morgan do something? Is it GB News he does, or one of those things?
Yes.
And I've sort of wanted to go on now. You'll have to hold your ears now. Sort of was go, hello, how are you, you old cunt? It's fucking great to see you, you cunty, cunty, cunt, cunt. And him to go, sorry, you can't say that. Oh, I thought this was the home of free speech. Isn't it? I thought this was the fucking home of cunting free speech. But it isn't. Oh, so free speech is negotiable. There are bits that you can't say and bits that you can, because that's the point. I mean, free speech is, of course, important, but it's not the end point. The end point is human beings living together in peace and harmony and happiness as much as possible, without war and violence and envy and resentment and bitterness or starvation and poverty and all those sort of things. That's the end point. And it's probable that end point is better arrived at if we live in a society where you're free to speak and share ideas and think freely, and you're not told what to say. So in that sense, free speech is very much one of the key things on the way to it. But for some people, key speech has become the end point. I want to live in a society where I can say anything. It doesn't matter if people are starving and the gap between rich and poor is wider than it's ever been. The only thing that matters is I can say what I want. Well, I just don't think that's what John Stuart Mill and all the original figures who wrote on liberty and free speech, I don't think that's quite what they meant, and I don't think it's what I see as the be-all and end-all. But so, I'm worried that there will be a rise in the kinds of kind of racist and transphobic and indeed anti-feminist on the other side, and all kinds of other nastiness will prevail. And Musk will go, yeah, that's what we call free speech. I'm a free speech absolutist, he called himself.
It is. It is concerning. It is concerning generally. I've made the decision that I don't tweet, so I just post the podcast when it comes out, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because it's a losing battle. You referred to like pieces of shit floating past in the once lovely lake, and then a piece of glass. I'll end up having an argument with a piece of shit, or a piece of glass, and I just don't want to.
I think what I think of is like if at school you're captain of the chess club, and you put the team up on the notice board and you pin it up on the notice board, and you then go away. What you don't do is put the notice up and then hide behind a pillar and listen to how people respond to it. Oh, I see oh, what's he put that up for? He's a wanker, isn't he? And all that. Just put your notice up and walk away. Yeah.
And now, to the credit of Twitter, you can have settings where one of the settings I have on my Twitter feed is that I can't see any tweets directed at me from anybody who hasn't got an email address verified, hasn't got a phone number verified, doesn't have a profile picture. Brilliant. So I don't get many tweets because it filters out a lot of the stuff. So my notifications are pretty nice. They're pretty straightforward, and it's because in the past it has been a distraction. I don't want to fall into holes, and spend hours of my life wasted trying to chase down a troll. You've accomplished so many unbelievable things in your career. In spite of all of these struggles that we've talked about, the list is actually too long for me to even, I wouldn't know where to start. As I look down onto this little iPad in front of me at all of the milestones, the books, the roles you've played, the scripts you've written, etc. Why and how? Why and how you? I know it's always a difficult question because it requires us to abandon humility for a second potentially and say something nice about oneself. But why you?
I think the first reason, and it would be the same if you spoke to a certain kind of musician, is because I write. And I have always written. Since I was a little boy, I used to write stories. And when I then was at Cambridge and there was this thing of comedy, it was natural, as with Hugh and on my own, to write monologues and sketches, to perform. And because I'd written them, I sort of wrote them for myself to perform. But the writing was at the bottom of it all. And then acting jobs on their own came along, which I didn't write or other people wrote, or I could just sort of add bits of writing to. But I was always a writer. And if you look at musicians, the reason we venerate Bowie and Elton John and Leonard Cohen, whoever it is, they write their music. Doesn't matter how fantastic their voices are. Yes, we love Nat King Cole or someone who is just a beautiful voice, but the pantheon of great artists are those who create their own work. They write it. They write the songs. They last forever if you write the song, Paul McCartney or whatever. You just think even something like when you see that postcode lottery and who's that knocking at my door, and you think, that's Paul McCartney when he wrote that, cannot have been thinking. But he wrote, and every day he writes, to this day, because that's what he is. That's the voice in him telling him that's what real work is the writing and the creating. And I love acting and I love presenting and reading audiobooks and things like that. Immense fun. But the real work is always sitting in front of the blinking cursor and writing things, and everything else is gravy, and fantastic gravy at that. Not because it's easier, and I'm not sort of saying acting is easier. It's just for some reason in my head, the Protestant work ethic, the Jewish work ethic, call it what you like, is the one that says, sitting alone, concentrating until bubbles of blood come out of your ears. That's work. Acting, as Shakespeare called it, is play. He was a playwright, and he called actors players.
Do you think we're all artists?
This is a really good question. And I always used to say no. I was very friendly in the heyday, well, I still am, with, for example, Damien Hirst. In the 90s, I was very much an habitué of the Groucho Club and the Tracy Emins and the Damien Hirst would come in along with the Oases and the Blurs and so on. It was very much the place where those incredibly energetic and new kinds of artists would assemble. And, I'd get drunk with Damien a lot. And I would sometimes say, I want to be an artist. And he'd say, you are an artist. Anybody can be an artist. I said, no, they can't. He said, what do you mean? I said, and I would say, I'm an entertainer. I'm frankly a bit bourgeois. I want to please people. And if I don't please them, I get upset. I've done it wrong. For me, the aim is to see delight in the face. But for you, it's to make something that matters to you. And if it disgusts people or horrifies them, you're often full of glee. It's not that you deliberately make them to hate it. There are enough people who love it to make you extremely rich. At the time, he was only slightly rich, but now, of course, he's worth a huge amount. And I said, that's what a real artist is. And my other artist friends, not all from that same generation, Maggie Hambling, who's a wonderful painter in Suffolk, and she's done my portrait several times or whatever. And she's a real artist. There's a toughness about her, a refusal to compromise, an absolute... What's central is her and her work, and that's true of artists. Artists are bloody-minded. They bite the hand that feeds them.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favour. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.